Right, I've got my first guest in the studio with me right now. He's literally just come straight for the V&A. I love it as well because he's like, I'm going to get there on time. And he's here in the studio with me. And he's a storyteller, a writer, an author, a Nigerian British man who's intentional with his words, is how I'd like to describe him. Yomi Sode released his debut book, Manorism, last year, and it's been re-released as a paperback this year, which is a prescient and moving collection of poetry and writings all about what it is to be a Black British man. He's in the building with me now. Yomi, how are you?
I'm all right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Don't worry.
Listen, I'm mad conscious that like you can just hear me huffing and puffing in the run that I had to run to get here. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad you made it as well.
I'm glad I made it. I didn't even know there was certain nips and tricks and tucking between people. I didn't even know I even had. I'm just like, I can consider maybe running as like a next
there we go.
skill set. Let's see what happens.
You might have to add it to the New Year's resolutions for next year. I'm well, thank you very much. I'm really well. And I was, you know what, because I knew obviously I was having you in today. I was thinking back to actually when we first crossed paths, and I don't know if you remember.
Wait, if it's the same one, I feel like, oh no, now I'm putting myself to the test, innit? Because that I became aware of you proper. There was a show in Brixton.
Yes.
That you were kind of like hosting.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. Wicked.
Yeah.
It's and I met the personality, the host the most. I was like, all right, cool. And that was a wicked night.
That was a wicked night because it's Afro Punk and Apples and Snakes that came together. And they actually asked me last minute, and I want to shout out to Toby Kiramitting, who asked me last minute to jump on as a host. And then one of the poets didn't turn up, so I actually ended up performing.
So you just felt like, all right, cool. This is the multitasking of life.
I don't know where that confidence has gone.
And now you're going to hear a poem one time.
I was on it. And you know what I was thinking about even more as well, because I remember Caleb Femi was on the lineup as well. And I introduced him saying his name wrong. And I'll never do it.
I don't remember that. Wait, I don't even want to know how you... I don't want you to relive it. I'm so cute. You can tell me once we kind of go off there.
But I almost feel like, though, because he's gone on to do amazing things as well, that the way I pronounce his name was kind of like me even manifesting what he was going to go off and be. Because I called him Celeb.
I don't even remember.
He was not pleased. Caleb, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. I still remember it up to now.
I'm sure he forgives you.
And from then on, I said, I'm going to get everybody's name right.
Proper.
But yeah, so that's just how we cross paths.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've been going from heights to heights. And I even remember then the energy in the room when you were performing and just people so gassed to see your work. So let's just have a bit more, just a quick insight of why words, why storytelling, why poetry, why have you wanted to be the man with many words?
That's so funny. Do you know what it is? I was born in Nigeria, right? So even when I arrived in England, English wasn't necessarily my kind of first point of call. So a lot of the senses that I had to make was around behavior and around how I had to adapt a lot of the time. And the story to how I even found words in the first place was like culturally, if the elders if they run it up, the last thing I wanted to do was to run my mouth. So, so my go-to at that point was just like, all right, cool. If I can't bad none of you lot up in that sense, then let me try writing about it. So it was just the idea of what essentially, it's not like I'm writing notes on just cussing out the elders. But it's like how to kind of vent frustrations to a certain degree and how to write some of that out. And in later years, I've just grown a real fascination with music. So I learned how to DJ. I learned how to produce. I'm of the Soul Solid generation, so I was learning how to MC as well.
I think everyone had to have a 16 bars.
Everyone had to have a MC kind of 16 bar, but at the same time, I was part of a crew. And so all facets of music I was really interested in. But poetry came at a point where an incident happened at work, which then kind of forced my hand to backtrack a bit and look into what I wanted to do as a vocation. And I decided to enroll myself in this music course where you had to learn to dance, to sing, and to write. I wasn't quite prepared for the singing and dancing part, but I was definitely there for the writing part. And that's how poetry kind of came into frame. The first performance actually was to music, in terms of like a spoken word, like a set, so to speak. But I found that people were vibing too much to the music. And I was like, you don't need to take me seriously. I don't know if you're hearing me or if you're hearing the music. And from that point, it was just mainly the lyrics for me, the words, and let that dictate what the tone is. Let that be the music, so to speak. And I later revisited music at a point when I was more comfortable with just my voice as what you're going to hear as the instrument, so to speak, you know.
And I feel like that comes through in your debut book, Manorism, because there are lyrics that are in it as well.
Yeah.
And even because I haven't finished reading it, and there's some I can't read because it's in Yoruba.
Yeah.
But I also love those as well.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's important, that one.
Exactly. But I was also getting a real theme of just the power of words. And that's why I even said I feel like you're very intentional with words. You know the power of them. And even the words that can break us down, the words that can build us up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, even statements are in the book. Do you know what I mean? Where people might think that they're just saying flippant things, but they mean something.
Yeah.
So what were the words for you that were spoken to you that built you up during your career?
Do you know what it is? I don't know if they're necessarily positive words, so to speak. Do you know, there's how do you break down do better? Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, so definitely something like do better can be seen as just, of course you got to be better than you were before, but if depending on how the tone of that and how that is said, you have to question why you saying do better. To me, there was I remember one teacher in school specifically that was just like, you're not like the rest. Like, and I think what he was trying to explain to me at that point was privilege works differently with you. Like privilege works differently with us as a people, and you just can't mess about like Joe Blogs. Do you see what I mean? Because at some point he still will be good, but you is very different for you. So those things weren't necessarily the most positive thing to kind of say to me at a specific age, but it made me question, why are you saying this to me? And it made me question, what is it that you're looking for, or what is it that you're calling for in me for it to spark, for me to consider another angle in terms of how I enter this space. And even up till now, I struggle with compliments. I struggle with forms of affirmation, which is something that I'm really practicing to just take time for, because when I did make room for affirmations, it was just a simple thing of, all right, cool, what's next? So when I was growing up, it was a thing of, oh, I really want to celebrate what I just achieved. And when I was like waiting for people to try to give me my flowers, you see what I mean? And when that didn't come, and when I actually demanded my flowers, it was like, all right, cool, you done well, what's next? So in me, it kind of weirdly programmed this whole thing of, all right, cool, let's just get this done, let's move. Even when the book was published, I remember I was like, people are like, oh, you must be gassed. I'm just like, I'm good. And really, I should be like mad excited, but I think I'm now unlearning the idea of just like achievement, we move on. I think we should definitely, I say we, and I don't really like to speak in the we, but I think it's important to acknowledge the achievement, take time and reflect and be like, you know what, that took me a long time and I need to absolutely celebrate that. Do you see what I mean?
Definitely. And I think even when you're saying we, I'm feeling a cultural we, because I feel like there's definitely cultures that, I guess compliments, they come in different forms.
Yeah.
It comes from tough love.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I mean, and that is that kind of tough love is, which I absolutely get, but I think there's room for sensitivity, there's room for tenderness, there's room for, especially what I'm exploring in Manorism in relation to black men specifically, is that room to be heard, room to be able to, if you want to just feel vulnerable and cry, let it be so without people around you not knowing what to do, you know, be open to that, because there are specific windows of vulnerability that opens up a lot of the time, and which as a community and as a nation can be missed because of the stereotypes and because of the generalization has happened over time. So one of the aims of Manorism is to kind of give that scope to be like, now that you've read this book, should you be around or go into the shops or go into work or whatever it is, and you see that window of opportunity, that window of vulnerability, consider what that person's going through. Consider just saying, you know, are you all right? You okay? And that could make that person's morning, afternoon, week with just that one question, because we do it in other ways.
Yeah.
You know, like we do it in other ways. We show sympathy to like animals, but we don't show sympathy, or there's like a sympathy that I get that I wasn't shown when I was going through a specific thing. And I wonder why I wasn't shown that sympathy or empathy or given that time or grace, you know?
And let's talk about Manorism. So if anyone has tuned in now, we've got Yomi Sode in the building. His debut book is in my hand, the paperback of Manorism.
Oh, look at it. Look
at it.
Buff,
I'm going to...
And it's so slender and so slim.
It is,
with it.
and
like
it's packed.
Orange spine business.
It's packed with so much as well. So what is not even what is the story behind it? Because I feel like this is a collection of moments in time, lyrics, like I said, statements. And as I was like, because I haven't finished it, but as I was going through it, I'm like, you must have been collecting some of these stuff before you even knew this book was going to be a thing. Yeah,
and you know, it's stuff that I had to give myself permission to explore. Because if we're talking about poetry, there might be some tropes in which people carry in relation to poetry, and that's absolutely up to them. In terms of what things they might kind of consider is viable for a poetry collection or to write poems as a whole. But listen, I grew up in Channel U. I grew up with grime. I still have like collections of grime. I grew up within the Aylesbury estate, you know, South London. All of these things need to be, that's my experience. That's my lived experience. So why shouldn't I write about that? You know, why? And on top of that, why can't I learn some poetic forms and write about the manner within, I don't know, the Sestina or all of these poetic forms? Why can't I do that? You know, why can't I give myself that room to do this? Because, listen, there's a bunch of dead white poets who were given absolute room to write about all they wanted to write about. Do you see what I mean? So for me, it's very nostalgic, and for me, it's very telling of the time and of the experience and of the kind of lived experience of people who may be able to resonate to it. I'm writing it from my experience, but the love over the last 12 months has been like, you know what? I see me in that. I get those references. The Yoruba is important for the 13-year-old who sees it at the front, the first poem to go into the book, to be like, I can't wait to show this to my parents because they feel seen. So there's a lot of things that I was really aiming for to achieve with this book, you know, and it's been definitely a process to write it, but in seeing how different people pick their parts in the book, it's an honor. It's an absolute honor to have those conversations and to receive messages on the odd occasion through the week, you know.
Yeah. And what has this book done for you as well? Because it's taken you places.
Yeah. So I just came back from Singapore. I don't even know if I'm jet lagged. Listen, a 14-hour flight coming back. I watched 4 films. I still had like 7 hours to go. Like, how is this making sense?
You could have written another book.
I could, listen. But I think the ability to travel to another country, to travel to different cities, to read poems, to do workshops in prisons. And it's interesting as well because the prison work is like, I had a workshop in the prison where all of the men in there were white men. And this is a book from like that's talking about like pretty much exploring Black British men and the experience of Black British men in the country and within diaspora. But I'm doing this workshop with like 10 white men, but there's still a universal theme of masculinity, of fatherhood, of love, of grief that we're still working with. So it's not just this is what this book is exploring, but in the theme of it, there are still ways in which people can find themselves. And this is the beauty of what Manorism is doing, is there are themes cross-board that whether I'm in Singapore and it's a different language, and whether it's in this city or this city, when these poems are read, heard, translated, there are commonalities, you know, there were themes in which people come to me saying they were crying. There were themes in which people are saying, you know, that is me. And that's what makes all of this process a beautiful thing, you know?
Yeah, and that also just reminds us as humans what the themes that actually make us similar.
Yeah.
We're all having a human experience, and there are the nuances in how we live our life. But you saying that you've gone into prisons and you're doing workshops with white men, there's still those themes there.
100%. And I think there is a general, you know, because it explores art history, and it also pulls together like an argument in relation to how grace and privilege works when it pertains to specific people. So Manorism is a poem in the book that's quite, you know, that notes the whole Alex Mann and Glastonbury situation with AJ Tracy. And there's not a point that I read that poem that people are like, oh my God, I remember that moment, but they didn't necessarily consider the greater context in relation to that poem and how privilege and grace works. The ability for this man to be on breakfast television reeling off lyrics that's filled with kind of different kind of negative or violent connotations, but because it's essentially this white kid that's kind of on this vibe of grime, it's fine. But on the flip side, you have someone like AJ, and ultimately you're being told, you've been questioned about gangs and all of these different things. Like it's how you draw these parallels and how we want to bring these arguments to the forefront. It's not a book of me necessarily saying or ranting to being like, or preachy. I'm not saying look at this, but it's a book that kind of contextualizes situations that have been in our face for so long and just questions the reasonings to it. So like, ever wondered, ever questioned? And it's for the reader to talk on or to explore, and we look into it a bit deeper. I'm not trying to be a historian in that sense, but I think in looking into archive and looking into how we work with forms of research, and we explore it through story. That's the important thing. I'm not trying to kind of give you an essay or something. I'm trying to explore it through a story, through a poem, and then we kind of draw our conclusions from there, you know.
And storytelling is such a powerful way to actually get points across, to evoke feeling, because you empathize also. You think, what is my relation to this person? Could I be that person?
Yeah.
How far removed am I from that person? Do you know? And would I be treated any differently if I was that person?
Yeah. And to the community of spoken word as well. Like I've grown up through the community of spoken word artists, and I take great pride in the idea of arguing something on a page, and when you get on that stage, you absolutely lift it off the page. Do you see what 100%. I mean? And it's the idea of how do you bring something to life in various forms. And I'm thankful that Manorism has been adapted into a play. The third section has been adapted into a play that was staged at the Amelia Theatre in 2001. It's been an art exhibition. There's been so many different things that's happened with it, and we're not stopping. Like I don't think I still want to explore more ways to really bring this to life, and it's been a joy. Just what I mean. As a debut, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure, with the love of the team as well in terms of Penguin and their support in being daring to champion a book like Manorism in terms of how it's challenging the various complex issues that are kind of like out there, and the vulnerabilities as well that like need to be heard and felt, you know.
We're gonna have to wrap up, and I wish we could, and I mean, this is the danger though of having authors and writers and poets, because we could be here for 2 hours and we could have a real in-depth conversation.
No, I get it.
But before that, Christmas is coming up as well, so where can people buy this?
You can get it from your local like bookstores, your indie bookstores. You can get it online, just what I mean. Just literally type in Yomi Sode Manorism, and you'll see it in all the bookstores, and just get it from there. And it's been a pleasure to actually be here. I've seen this. I'm like, wow, when am I gonna get my invite to the scene? Like, what's going on?
I'm glad to have you. I'm glad to have had you as well.
It's congrats and everything. Congrats and just on the show. And you got the radio voice as well. Like, I always feel like, do I have that radio voice?
We've been working on the compliments as well. You said this at the beginning, that you're working on compliments. I need to get better at taking them as well.
Oh, what do you mean? You're hosting a whole show. What do you mean? How are you not taking the
It's not about me. It's about you.
Stop the noise.
Right. Where do we go to follow your journey? See what you've got coming in the new year.
On Instagram is Yomi_Sode. You can the website is just yomishode.com, and and that's it. I truly wish everyone happy holidays. It's been a very, very, very difficult year. Do you see what I mean? With so much going on, and we're pushing through and pressing through, and I have to give thanks for that. So shout out to the listeners, to yourself, and yeah, man, here's to 2024 coming up.
It is, exactly. Do you know what? I think we're going to take this right up to the news. So if you can quickly tell me, do you know who your artist of the year has been since you love music?
Yo, listen. So, yeah, Cleo Sol was my top artist of the year.
I'm jealous.
I am like live. It's exactly what it needs to be. When I saw that yesterday, I was like, of course, it makes absolute sense. Cleo Sol is my top artist of 2023.
And what was your top track?
My top track, J Hus and Drake. Who told you?
Oh, really? You've had a lively year.
I was very surprised. I was just like, raw, of all the tunes. And the contrast between both. And Hack Baker was in the middle, like in terms of like albums that I've listened to the most this year. I'm very like, okay, this is a good mix of like artists. And I'm not mad.
Definitely.
I mean?
I'm jealous.
I was very proud that Cleo was the first because I do champion Cleo Sol. So
have you heard of Salt? They're doing their live show.
You're lying.
Yeah, before the end of the year.
You're lying.
Yeah. Was Salt in there? Your top artist?
Are the tickets out? Did it go?
No,
when
we don't know yet. We don't know yet. So okay, when I found out,
my heart just actually went. I thought.
Right, I'm going to leave you on that one. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Easy.
And that was the beautiful Yomi Sode with his gorgeous words that you can find in Manorisms, which is his debut book. It